The LCS has made some pretty big decisions in the last couple of days, and I think it's time that we take a look at it. So let's talk about it on the LCS report. That's right, we are back. Sorry for missing a day. If you saw my video from Monday, you probably heard that my voice was terrible. Yesterday was somehow even worse, and I was just coughing up a storm. I couldn't stop. So I went to a doctor, got everything fixed. Got medicine for it, I should say. And we're doing a little better today. So, that's good news. But, it's time for us to talk about the LCS. And yes, I am sorry. We were going to go through more power rankings of players and stuff, but this is too important to skip because I think that, switching the times, which is what happened, is a pretty significant topic. So we're going to dive into this here, for a few minutes, and we're going to talk about the changes. We've got Travis Gafford here did an interview with John Needham and Naz. I cannot remember her last name right now to save my life, but I've met Naz. She's fantastic. Her and I have talked a few times in person. I have yet to meet John or see him at an event, but Naz has generally been at the last, I think, 3 now finals, or 2 finals and worlds. So, she's out there. She's listening to people. It's clear that they were listening to everybody here because the times have shifted, okay? And I'm very intrigued to hear, I guess, what you guys have to think. So let me know in the comment section below before I really dive into this, what you guys think about these time changes. But, Travis talks to both of them, and, I don't have time to go through a 45 almost minute video of interviews, and we're going to just kind of break some stuff down. So the big thing is they changed it from starting at 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, or, noon Pacific to 2 p.m. Pacific. And I think that this was a change that a lot of people felt was necessary. And what was interesting was kind of the background as to why they chose this. And I think it makes sense to me, to be honest with you. I really was pushing for maybe, moving it back an hour to allow for the West Coast to have a little bit more time, to allow for the East Coast to be able to come back. But there were, I think, some really important decisions that were made, and the reasonings why I think were smart. Like, they talked about how they believe that excuse me, that these times were optimal times based on their research, right, when people would be watching, and they based it off of the ability for European fans to be able to watch, right? And that was at least part of it. The other part that I think is probably the most interesting part, I did not realize this, that's for sure, but 70% of the LCS viewership apparently comes from the East Coast. Now, the East Coast is massive compared to the West Coast. Most of America lives east of the Mississippi River, okay? The East Coast has had a longer time to develop. Once people found out about California, they kind of skipped over most of the states in the middle and went out to the West Coast, to California most specifically. So, it's so interesting to see how many people were upset about these changes. Okay, so you guys have to remember that, LCS and LEC fans definitely have a strong crossover. This is, shown here. And they wanted to give the LCS their own dates, the LEC their own dates. That's why the LEC has times also on Monday. I think the LCS probably has an older viewing audience than most of the other leagues, so I think weekdays kind of works out well. People get their weekends like they like, and I think that it makes sense when you think about it because I think the nearest time zone to the East Coast is 5 or 6 hours. So if they would have been starting at 3, that would have been 8 o'clock for Europe, which would then have the games ending at 1 or 2 in the morning. I think 1 in the morning specifically. Now with everything being pushed back, obviously they will end at 3 in the morning. But if people want to catch the early games, which is why the better games are going to be early, then that means that the East Coast and specifically Europe are going to be able to catch the earlier games. What is interesting is for those of you who are on the West Coast is that you guys were really upset because this time is not ideal for you. And I get it. I want to be clear. I totally understand why you feel that way. The problem is that the other thing they revealed is that the LCS is the second highest revenue of all of their leagues, okay? And that means that a lot of it is probably coming from people on the East Coast, considering 70% of their viewership is from the East Coast, okay? So they had to start looking at, okay, if 70% of our viewership comes from the East Coast, then we have to obviously, pander to them more than they have the West Coast, because let's be honest, as somebody from the Midwest, it's felt like it has always been focused on the West Coast. Everything is West Coast, times, games, you can't even get used to not be able to get interviews unless if you were in person in Los Angeles, right? Now, obviously, they've been doing a better job of remote, and, now we know that the LCS viewership is heavily skewed in the East Coast, but, I do feel for people from the West Coast, but you have to understand, I mean, we on the East Coast have been getting shafted for a really long time. I'd have to spend my entire weekends up until like 1 or 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. And then, all the people on the West Coast would be done with the games, and then they'd just go out and have a normal weekend. That's what we're getting now, and you guys will still be able to go out and have your weekends, be able to have your nights. But, you'll be able to watch the LCS at, I think, a time that is going to be very beneficial to you. Whereas my Friday nights, I'm still going to be watching the LCS until like 10 o'clock. Can't really do much, starting at 10 necessarily. I guess I could. I guess I could still, go watch it at a buddy's house and then go out to the bars or something like that if I wanted to. But you get my point. Like, by the time the games are done for everybody on the West Coast, it'll only be 7 o'clock. You'll have just finished dinner. So they're still, I think, pandering pretty hard to what is probably 25% of their demographic, but that's okay. I think these changes seemingly have found a better middle ground. The other point that I think is very interesting and worth talking about is the fact that the LCS is the second biggest revenue driver, and that people are, trying to say that Riot Games doesn't care about the LCS. I think there's just a lot of change that's happening at one time. I don't think they've done a great job at communicating. They address that in this video. Again, Travis does a great job of asking these questions, I think, very pointedly, and John mentions that he is happy to come on and do another one of these because they are very committed to the LCS. Guys, this is something that I've been telling people behind the scenes for a while. Everybody's like, oh, the LCS is dying, it's bad. I'm like, no, like, if you know anything about ad revenue, okay, the amount of money that you get from advertising, which is a major portion of what, makes the LCS gain any money at all, what makes low esports gain any money at all, right, is these partnerships with these brands, is that North American audiences, English-speaking audiences first, like English language first audiences, in terms of advertising dollars, are worth, substantially more than, let's say, audiences from Brazil or audiences from Italy, right? Like, the LCS, even with the fourth worst, viewership, is still the second most profitable one, okay? And that's why, like, everybody jokes, oh, well, NA can spend so much money. It's because these audiences are worth more. We live in a capitalistic society, for those of us in the United States, and generally people just spend more money. So it would make no sense, none whatsoever, for them to not spend the money to make this league bigger, because if it's driving that much revenue, if they're able to do second with the limited viewership that they already have, then they're going to continue to they want this to be number one, right? This is their home region. It would be an embarrassment to them to not have this region continue to grow and find its start and really figure itself out. So we are going through what is a growing period, right? Where, growing pains period, right? Where things are not going as well as they would hoped, and I think that they did neglect us because they saw, hey, revenue's second, but once they took a deeper dive, obviously they realized the concerns that a lot of us had, and so they are making changes. They're making a lot of them at the same time, and I think that that's going to be one, beneficial, but two, it's going to be a little slow going. But I can tell you this much: they're going to keep pouring resources into the LCS, and they're going to keep trying to grow the league, change things up. They also talk about how they're going to make the broadcast a lot different. That I think we're going to be in a good spot. So just watch this video. I think it's really well done. I think both John and Nas are both very well spoken, and sure, you can take some of what they say with a grain of salt. They are probably being at least a little reactive, but from my genuine experiences with Nas, I think that she is very forward thinking. I think that she is very much in touch with what a lot of people are thinking. And so if she's helping to drive these different, aspects and changes, then I have full confidence that things are only going to slowly, but, steadily get better from here. So I don't know. Like I said, let me know what you guys think. And with that, yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one.